Hey guys, tonight we ride straight into the dust, gun smoke, and questionable decision making of the Wild West, where justice wasn't blind so much as drunk, broke, and occasionally armed with a rope. This was an era where sheriffs moonlighted. As outlaws, vigilantes thought trial meant shouting loudly before tying a noose, and law enforcement agencies occasionally solved problems by lobbing explosives into family homes. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's braving the night or procrastinating at work to join us on these dusty journeys into history. Now, dim the lights, maybe pour yourself a glass of whiskey, or if you're civilized, tea, and let's ease into tonight's tale together. Because while Hollywood gave us polished cowboys riding off into sunsets, the truth is that living in Dodge City in the 1870s gave you about the same chance of dying violently as a background character in a Quentin Tarantino movie. Courts were slow, mobs were fast, and minorities were targeted at rates that would make even the most corrupt modern system blush. In the Wild West, due process didn't just get skipped, it was never invited to the party. So saddle up, because tonight we're diving into a world where law and order meant hope you can run faster than the posse, and where justice wasn't served with a gavel, it was usually served dangling from the nearest tree. Part 1. Welcome to the murder lottery. Forget Clint Eastwood staring down bandits at high noon. The real Wild West wasn't about noble sheriffs and dramatic duels. It was more like, who wants to get shot today? Violence wasn't a possibility. It was practically a community activity. Take Dodge City, Kansas between 1876 and 1885. Living there gave you a 1 in 61 chance of getting murdered. That's about 1.5%. Doesn't sound terrifying? Let me put it this way. If your poker table had 6 players, statistically, one of you would end up horizontal by year's end. Compare that to modern America in 2015, where the chance of being murdered was 1 in 200. Suddenly, Dodge looks less like a fun cattle town and more like a live-action horror game. San Francisco wasn't much better during its gold rush years, 1850-1865. Back then, living there gave you a 1 in 203 chance of dying violently. Today, living in San Francisco gives you a 1 in 203 chance of working at a failing.com. Personally, I'll take the .com. Why was the West such a bloodbath? Simple. The Civil War ended, and suddenly thousands of broke, traumatized men with nothing but gun skills needed new jobs. What better career path than professional argument settler? Soldiers poured into the frontier with itchy trigger fingers. Some of them carried old grudges. Union veterans and Confederate veterans didn't exactly hold hands and sing Kumbaya together. One such rivalry ended with a famous duel, Wild Bill Hickok, Union, versus Dave Tutt, Confederate. Spoiler, Tutt didn't walk away. Basically, the West was like a giant gun convention mixed with a grudge reunion, and everyone forgot to install a police department. Part 2. Lawless Los Angeles and DIY Justice. If you think modern Los Angeles is dangerous, buckle up. In the 1800s, Los Angeles County had a whopping 6,000 residents, most of them young, single, and armed. The crime rate higher than New York City. Yes, a town smaller than a football stadium had more murders than America's biggest city. The legal system? Useless. Courts were overwhelmed, jails were flimsy, and half the sheriffs were either drunk, corrupt, or both. One potential settler summed it up perfectly. This place will not do for me. There is no security here. I dare not venture out after the dark of night has set in. Translation, nice town you've got here. Shame it's unlivable. When actual law didn't work, people improvised. Enter vigilante justice. Sounds heroic, right? Neighbors banding together to protect the innocent? Wrong. This wasn't Batman. This was angry mobs with rope collections. Sometimes vigilantes got creative. In 1891, one unlucky bandit was hanged, skinned, and turned into souvenirs. Imagine going to the general store and buying a belt labeled 100% genuine outlaw. Brutal? Yes. Fashion forward? Also yes, in a deeply disturbing way. If you were accused of a crime, your life expectancy dropped to as soon as the mob finds a tree. Courts rarely held proper trials and appeals. Forget it. One guy convicted of stealing gold dust in 1851 was given a generous 3 hours to get his affairs in order before being executed. What do you even do in 3 hours? Spend the gold dust? Write your will? Take a nap? The message was clear. In the Wild West, justice didn't just wear a blindfold. It wore a ski mask. Part 3. Mob Rule and the Color of Justice. As bad as vigilante justice was, it got even worse when you factored in racism. Surprise! In the 1800s, mobs weren't exactly known for fairness. Indigenous people, Hispanics, and Chinese immigrants were disproportionately targeted. In 1878, a Native American named Juan La Cruz got drunk and allegedly harassed a woman and child. The woman and child were unharmed, but the mob didn't care. They stormed the jail, dragged him into the woods, and lynched him. That was Western due process. No judge, no jury, just ropes and rage. Meanwhile, the Pinkerton Detective Agency entered the scene. Think of them as private cops for hire, except instead of badges, they had cigars, whiskey breath, and OLE, willingness to blow up your house. Their mission? Catch famous outlaws like Jesse James and Butch Cassidy. Their methods? Questionable at best, catastrophic at worst. Case in point, in 1875, the Pinkertons attacked Jesse James' mother's house. Instead of arresting Jesse, they tossed a bomb through the window. The result? Jesse's 8-year-old half-brother was killed and his mother lost her arm. Jesse himself? He wasn't even home. Public opinion flipped overnight. The Pinkertons went from heroes of justice to the guys who bombed children. Jesse James, ironically, became more popular after that. Proof that if your enemy is incompetent enough, you can build a legend out of their mistakes. So yeah, mobs were brutal. Pinkertons were reckless, and if you were a minority, you had about as much chance of a fair trial as a snowball in Arizona. Part 4. Committees of Chaos. Let's move to San Francisco, where Gold Rush chaos turned neighborhood watch into legal murder squad. In 1851, citizens formed the Vigilance Committee, a polite way of saying, we're done with courtrooms, let's just hang people ourselves. This first committee had about 200 members. They hanged offenders, deported others, and ran the city until things calmed down. Problem solved, right? Wrong. Because in 1856, Irish Catholic politician James Casey shot a newspaper editor who accused him of corruption. The city exploded. A second vigilance committee formed, basically vigilantes to check the first vigilantes. Casey was already arrested by police, but 500 vigilantes surrounded the jail, dragged him out, staged a fake trial, and hanged him. That trial lasted about as long as a coin toss. Of course, this wasn't just about crime. It was also about politics. The committee members were mostly Protestant Americans who hated that Irish Catholics were gaining power. So while they called it justice, it was really ethnic turf war with ropes. Nothing says democracy like vigilantes running the city twice in a decade. Part 5. Crooked sheriffs and deadly badges. Now, before you think, at least the real lawmen were better. Allow me to crush that dream. Many sheriffs were broke because they weren't paid salaries. Instead, they made money by taking cuts from fines or bounties. And when fines dried up, some turned outlaw. Sheriff David Allison, accused of stealing public money, Deputy Henry Newton Brown went bounty hunting, then robbed a bank instead. Classic side quest gone wrong. Timothy Long-Haired Jim Courtwright ran a protection racket shaking down saloons. He eventually picked a fight with saloon owner Luke Short. The duel ended with Short turning Courtright into Swiss cheese. Not every sheriff was corrupt, of course. Some were legitimate peace officers, but their job was basically suicide with a badge. U.S. Marshals, in particular, faced insane risks. In 1872, a marshal and 7 posse members were killed trying to take a prisoner from a Cherokee court. In 1887, a prisoner escaped left 3 more dead. By 1893, another breakout killed 3 more lawmen. Being a U.S. Marshal in the West was like being the drummer in Spinal Tap, glorious for 5 minutes, then fatal. Part 6, Gun Laws, Shootouts, and the Not-So-Wild West. Despite its reputation, the Wild West actually tried gun control. Cities like Tombstone, Arizona, and Dodge City, Kansas required visitors to surrender their firearms upon entering town. Sounds sensible, right? Except people didn't like giving up their shiny pistols, so arguments often turned into, you guessed it, more shootings. The legendary OK Corral shootout. It all started because Billy Clanton and the McClory brothers refused to hand over their guns. Basically, the most famous gunfight in the West was just 3 dudes saying, "No, we like our guns, thanks." Author and cowboy Andy Adams later wrote about Dodge City's laws. The buffalo hunters and rangemen have protested against the iron rule of Dodge's peace officers, and nearly every protest has cost human life. Translation: you either obeyed the law or the law put you 6 feet under. So yeah, the Wild West wasn't about riding horses into saloons and shooting out chandeliers for fun. It was about mobs lynching suspects, corrupt sheriffs robbing banks, detectives throwing bombs into houses, and gun control laws enforced by, ironically, gunfire. Would you have survived the Wild West? Honestly, probably not, unless you were really good at ducking.